Let's go back to the conversation that I promised you we'd have. We are now joined by Ms. Yolande van Biljon, who is the Chief Financial Officer at the SABC. Yolande, welcome to the program in SA Today. Thank you indeed for joining us. How are you doing?
Hi, good afternoon. I'm really struggling to hear you, no?
Okay, I'm going to try and ask technical to push this audio from my side to you. But let's come back and crunch the numbers, Yolande. You've just gone through to Parliament. The numbers, 511 million rand net loss for the SABC. She's bleak picture, but you go on to say, look, it's not that bad. 20% better performance against budget.
Yes, I do believe it's a further step in the right direction towards our financial sustainability, and it shows that the efforts of the past 2-3 years are starting to show also in the numbers. We do really understand that there's still a lot of work to be done, but at least the message in the numbers seems to be positive, particularly if you were to normalize the numbers and look at operational performance in itself.
Where were you able to trim the fat, so to speak, if I can call it that way? I mean, total revenue declined by 12% year on year. That is a huge percentage. Where were you able to trim the fat and try and keep up with what is out there as far as the economy is concerned?
And you'll forgive me if I'm struggling to hear you occasionally. But yes, we were able to mitigate a lot of the losses in our revenue generation section by a combination of efforts. Our 4 big cost drivers are investment in content, signal and distribution cost, payroll, and then I'll lump all other operational expenditure together. Now, I also, as a CFO, always look at the operational cost as bad cost. That is specifically where you want to tighten up on your financial discipline. And as such, we have made good progress in that combination of cost to the extent that there was almost 325 plus million saving by just bringing in strict financial controls, austerity measures, and discipline. If you look at our investment in content, unfortunately, the financial situation caused us to delay investment in new content, maybe defer more to repeat strategy because we're simply not able to afford sufficient investment there. So I look at that specific saving not as a saving as much as cash conservation because it is necessary for us to be able to meet all our obligations, but it does have a negative impact in future. We see it now or last year and even in this year and before then, in fact, as a result of the fact that your audience start migrating away because your content is not attractive and compelling, and with that goes your advertisers. So it's quite a task to start investing in your content and advertising and slowly but surely drawing your audiences back and ultimately your advertisers, which is also what the bailout funding that we received, a large percentage of that is invested in exactly that. With signal and distribution costs, we've made minor savings, but not nearly as much as we know that should be possible, and further initiatives are carrying on there. And the last one is our employee cost. The topic is well debated in all platforms in recent months. It is a known fact that we have a bloated structure. We have inherited exorbitant salaries from the past, and it is our duty to be able to address that along with all the other cost drivers to return our organization to financial sustainability.
Yolande, it would be amiss of me if I did not pose this question for you, especially in the back of the Section 189s that are currently going on at the SABC. You bloated staff, or the wage bill, as you put it. A lot of people would say, where are you cutting the fat there? We've heard unions at the SABC saying maybe it should be top-down group taking pay cuts, maybe get declined there and then filter down to the staff down at the bottom who a lot of people would say need as much money as they can get because they're not getting as much money as the board, if I can put it that way.
Our target operating model address all the levels in the organization, from the executives right down to the low levels. As such, it is everybody that is affected in the course of the Section 189 process. There's also a whole bouquet of initiatives that we are bringing in that is not only just with respect to retrenching people, but it would include things like salary freezes are anticipated for at least the next 2 to 3 years. We are reducing leave pay, we are reducing sick leave, and we are reducing the ability to encash leave. So with this combination of activities, we do believe we are able to move nearer to the target that we need, the number that we need to reduce the payroll by to ensure that we're financially sustainable. But more importantly, particularly your middle management level has become quite in proportion more bloated than the rest of the organization over time. So there has been a significant amount of effort in what we call middle to senior management as well. So no, everybody is affected. And it is weighted more towards the senior management, but then again, in the context of nearly 3,000 people, that specific group of people are I think, less than 100 perhaps, and I think their salary as a percentage of the total bill is maybe between 3 and 4%. So it is unfortunately not significant enough.
Okay, now let's come back to the other point that a lot of people saying, look, if the SABC wants to make money, TV licenses would be the way to go. We've had this problem. It's a headache, I know, but I'm going to raise it. Why are we not able to collect TV licenses? And I know that there are plans to go to Parliament and ask government to help with that, in particular with the DSTV channels, so to speak, who use some SABC content, but I know SABC is saying we're not getting any royalties from that. Where are we from there with regards to collecting all the monies and all the pennies and cents, one could call it, but they go a long way?
So, and again, you must forgive me, I am struggling to hear you. The bottom line is, we invoice nearly 3 billion rand a year to all that own a TV. As I said, there's about 9 million households in the country who has access to TV in some shape or form. The reality is that of that, about 80% in this past financial year is not paying their TV licenses. And yes, you can definitely explore all the other mechanisms that you also mentioned. We are doing that in a combination of ways, including engagements with the multi-choices of this world. And as well as looking at other more innovative ways to collect the money. But ultimately, I think if we are able to show that we're an organization that can be trusted, that we have a content that is intriguing, that is comparable to the extent that you can with the big players in this industry, then you should be able to convince people that 265 Rand or 72 cents a day is actually worth paying. And I think the conversation will be different then, also with our financial sustainability. But the evasion rate, you will not be able to do much about that unless there are other more stricter compliance measures and punitive measures to be able to collect. And we're not able to go that route, and it would not be ideal to go there.
There's also the question of creditors that the SABC has, and in particular as well, what you mentioned, content. Got content service providers that give us content. Coming back to the budget, we know that we 511 in the red. Were you able to patch there and pay off those people that the SABC owes?
Yes. So under the normal circumstances, when we have to do the extreme cash management, which is also the specific financial year the case, we work extremely closely with our service providers. The main grouping of that would be your content service providers. So over time, I think we have, and I can confidently say we have established a very solid relationship with that group of people. We communicate transparently. We share with them the plans. It allows them an opportunity to plan as well. So we believe that relationship allows us and them to work closely together and to ensure that everybody survives. We follow the same mechanism with some of our other big service providers. That would include the signal and distribution cost. It would include the music industry, bodies, etc. So we have built up good and trusting relationships that are constructive and that allows all parties to be able to manage the situation. Since the receipt of the bailout, we have been able to settle a significant amount of our trade and other payables that were due on the 30th of September last year. And naturally, a large component of that went into our content service providers, amongst others.
You mentioned the bailout. People watching at home are saying, oh, SABC and bailouts. projections from where we are now, will you foresee the SABC going back to the stakeholder and saying, look, we need some help? We know that 2020 has been tough financially because of COVID. The economic downturn has hit everybody. Will the SABC be in good standing as to not possibly go back to the stakeholder and ask for another bailout?
We have no intention to ask for another bailout. We don't need to ask for one. We have what it takes to be able to return to financial sustainability with the mechanisms at our disposal. Yes, there are a few factors in the external environment that is critical to also assist in this process. For example, the regulations and legislation that is in our universe, the legislative universe. So with that, as a combination of activities, we should be able to meet and exceed our turnaround plan expectations in about 2 to 3 years from now.
SABC's Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Yolande van Biljon, thank you very much indeed for joining us on SA Today.
Thank you very much.